The night Nathan Hale's life changed forever. He was standing in freezing rain outside a locked factory gate, soaking wet and completely alone. He had $37 in his bank account, a terrified 8-year-old son waiting for him in a dark apartment across town, and no way to get home. When the sleek black car pulled up beside him and the window rolled down to reveal a woman whose net worth could probably buy his entire neighborhood, Nathan's first thought wasn't gratitude, it was suspicion. Because in his experience, people like Isabella Royce didn't stop for people like him unless they wanted something. What he didn't know was that this one ride would unravel everything he thought he understood about survival, pride, and what it means to let someone in when you've spent years building walls just to stay standing. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it moves you, hit that like button. Now let's begin. Nathan's hands were numb. Not the kind of numb that comes from cold weather, though it was freezing. Rain hammering down in sheets that turned the poorly lit street into a blur of gray. But the deeper kind. The kind that settles into your bones after too many double shifts. Too many nights wondering if you're doing enough, being enough, surviving enough. He stood outside the chain-link fence surrounding Bridgemont Industrial Manufacturing, watching the last bus pull away from the stop half a block down. Its taillights blurred into red smears through the downpour. Damn it! The words came out flat. Not angry, just tired. He'd sprinted the last 100 yards after his shift supervisor held him back for 10 extra minutes to lecture him about productivity metrics, as if Nathan needed reminding that his output determined whether he kept this job or joined the unemployment line. But it didn't matter now. The bus was gone, and the next one wouldn't come for another 2 hours. By then, Liam would be alone in their apartment for far too long, probably scared, definitely hungry. Nathan pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked across one corner, had been for 6 months, and the battery indicator showed 18%. He opened his banking app, already knowing what he'd see. Available balance, $37.42 rent was due in 4 days. He closed the app and opened the rideshare instead, typing in his address. The estimate loaded slowly. $31 to $35. His thumb hovered over the confirm button. $31 meant choosing between this ride and groceries tomorrow. It meant Liam eating cereal for dinner again. It meant Nathan closed the app. Okay, he muttered to himself, pulling the hood of his jacket tighter even though it was already soaked through. Okay, you've walked farther. It was a lie. The apartment was nearly 8 miles away through neighborhoods that got worse the closer you got to his building. But what choice did he have? He started walking. Marchit. The rain didn't let up. By the time Nathan made it 4 blocks, water was running into his boots, soaking through his socks. His jeans clung to his legs like cold, dead weight. He kept his head down, watching his feet splash through puddles that reflected the flickering streetlights overhead. He thought about Liam, 8 years old, too smart for his own good, too aware of how hard things were, no matter how much Nathan tried to hide it. The kid never complained, not about the cramped apartment, not about wearing secondhand clothes to school, not about the fact that his dad worked so much they barely saw each other except for rushed breakfasts and hurried goodnights. Nathan's chest tightened. I'm doing the best I can. But was it enough? Some days he wasn't sure anymore. Some days he looked at his son and saw a kid who deserved so much more than this half-life they were living, bouncing between paychecks, one emergency away from disaster. He thought about Sophie, not on purpose. He tried not to think about her most days because it hurt too much. But nights like this, when everything felt impossible, her absence pressed down on him like a physical weight. 3 years. It had been 3 years since the car accident took her. 3 years since Nathan became a single father with no idea what he was doing. 3 years of waking up every morning and choosing to keep going because Liam needed him to. He wiped rain from his face, or maybe it wasn't rain. Didn't matter. He kept walking. Passat. The car appeared out of nowhere. Nathan didn't notice it at first. He was too focused on putting one foot in front of the other, too lost in the miserable rhythm of cold and exhaustion. But then headlights swept across the sidewalk ahead of him, and he heard the smooth hum of an expensive engine slowing down. The car pulled up beside him. Black, sleek, the kind of vehicle that cost more than Nathan would earn in 5 years. The passenger window rolled down silently. You need a ride? The voice was female, controlled. The kind of voice used to giving orders and having them followed. Nathan stopped walking and looked over. The woman behind the wheel was younger than her tone suggested, maybe 30, though it was hard to tell in the dim light. Sharp cheekbones. Dark hair pulled back in a way that seemed both practical and elegant. She wore a black coat that probably cost more than his rent, and her expression was unreadable. Nathan blinked rain out of his eyes. What? A ride, she repeated, leaning slightly toward the open window. You're walking in a storm. I'm assuming you need one. He stared at her. This didn't happen. People like her, people in cars like that, didn't stop for people like him, especially not on this side of town, where most drivers lock their doors at red lights. I'm fine, Nathan said automatically. You don't look fine. Yeah, well, he shrugged, trying to ignore the way his teeth were starting to chatter. I'm managing. The woman studied him for a moment, her gaze steady and assessing in a way that made Nathan feel uncomfortably visible, like she could see through the deflection straight to the bone-deep exhaustion underneath. How far are you going? She asked. Why? Because I'm offering you a ride, and it would help to know where you're headed. Nathan hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no, to keep walking, because accepting help, especially from strangers, especially from someone who clearly existed in a completely different universe than he did, always came with strings attached. But his feet hurt, his clothes were soaked, and Liam was waiting. Riverside Apartments, he said finally, near the old rail yard. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or concern. That's almost 8 miles from here. I know. In this weather. Yeah. Nathan shifted his weight, suddenly defensive. Look, thanks for stopping, but I don't need... Get in the car. It wasn't a request. Nathan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. The truth was, he was freezing, exhausted, and running out of time. And whatever this woman's angle was, it probably wasn't going to reveal itself in the next 20 minutes. Okay, he said quietly. Thank you. He walked around to the passenger side and pulled the door open. The interior of the car was warm, dry, and smelled faintly of leather and something clean and expensive. Nathan hesitated before climbing in, suddenly aware of how much water he was about to track onto seats that probably cost more than his couch. I'm going to ruin your car, he said. It's a car, the woman replied. It'll survive. But Nathan slid into the seat and pulled the door shut. The silence that followed felt thick and strange. The woman glanced at him, then put the car in gear and pulled smoothly back onto the road. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Nathan sat stiffly in the passenger seat, trying not to drip too much water everywhere and failing miserably. He could feel the warmth from the car's heater starting to thaw his frozen fingers, and it almost hurt. So, the woman said eventually, breaking the silence. Factory work? Nathan glanced down at himself. His jacket still had the Bridgemont Industrial logo stitched across the chest. Yeah, how'd you guess? Isko. Call it intuition. Her tone was dry, almost amused. How long have you worked there? About 2 years. And before that? Nathan frowned. Why do you want to know? Just curious. He didn't believe her, but he also didn't have the energy to care. Warehouse, delivery driver before that, construction for a while, whatever paid. She nodded slowly, her eyes still on the road. Sounds like you've moved around a lot. Yeah, well. Nathan looked out the window, watching the rain streak across the glass. That's what happens when companies go under or decide they don't need you anymore. Oh, is that what happened at Bridgemont? They decided they didn't need you? Not yet. The words came out more bitter than he intended. Nathan clenched his jaw, suddenly wishing he'd kept his mouth shut. But the woman didn't push. She just drove in silence for another block before speaking again. I'm Isabella, she said. Nathan glanced at her. Nathan. Nice to meet you, Nathan. Yeah, you too. Another silence. Nathan shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with how normal this was starting to feel. Like they were just two people having a conversation instead of a factory worker and a woman who clearly came from money-accepting charity he hadn't asked for. So what were you doing out here? he asked, trying to fill the quiet. This isn't exactly the kind of neighborhood people like you drive through. Isabella's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. People like me? You know what I mean? I do. She paused. I had a meeting nearby, ran late. A meeting. Nathan looked at her coat, her car, the way she carried herself like someone used to being in control. What do you do? I run a company. What kind of company? The kind that owns factories like the one you just left. Nathan went very still. Isabella glanced at him, and this time she did smile, small and sharp. Relax. I'm not your boss. Bridgemont Industrial is owned by Royce Consolidated, but I don't handle day-to-day operations. Royce, Nathan repeated slowly, as in, yes. He stared at her. Royce Consolidated was one of the biggest manufacturing conglomerates in the state. Factories, shipping, logistics. They controlled half the supply chain for everything from automotive parts to electronics. Nathan had seen their logo on enough invoices to know exactly how powerful they were, and apparently he was sitting in a car with the woman who ran it. So you're what? He said carefully. A CEO. Something like that. Nathan laughed, short and humorless. Of course you are. Isabella's expression didn't change. Does that bother you? Should it? You tell me. Nathan shook his head, looking away. I just don't get it. Why stop for me? You could have driven past. Most people would have. Most people aren't me. Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. Isabella didn't respond. She just kept driving, her hand steady on the wheel, her gaze focused on the rain-slicked road ahead. Nathan watched her for a moment, trying to figure out what her angle was. People didn't do things like this without a reason. They didn't stop in storms to pick up strangers unless they wanted something, recognition, gratitude, the satisfaction of feeling like a good person. But Isabella's face gave nothing away. Finally, Nathan gave up trying to solve the puzzle and just looked out the window instead. They were 5 minutes from his apartment when Nathan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, and his chest tightened when he saw Liam's name on the screen. Dad, where are you? Nathan's fingers moved quickly. On my way. Everything okay? The response came almost immediately. The lights went out. Nathan swore under his breath. What do you mean the lights went out? Everything's dark. I'm scared. Problem? Isabella asked. Nathan looked up, realizing he'd been staring at his phone with his jaw clenched. The power's out at my building. My son's alone. Isabella's expression sharpened. How old is he? 8. She didn't hesitate. Her foot pressed down on the accelerator and the car surged forward smoothly. Nathan typed quickly. I'm almost there. Stay in the apartment. Lock the door. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Okay, I love you, buddy. Love you too. Nathan shoved the phone back into his pocket and pressed his hands against his thighs to stop them from shaking. He'll be okay, Isabella said quietly. You don't know that. No, but panicking won't help him. Nathan wanted to snap at her, to tell her she didn't understand, that she couldn't possibly know what it felt like to leave your kid alone and then have something go wrong. But the truth was, she was right. Panicking wouldn't help. So he forced himself to breathe and focused on the road ahead. The Riverside Apartments looked worse in the rain. The building was a squat 6-story brick structure surrounded by cracked pavement and a chain-link fence that had rusted through in places. Half the exterior lights were burned out, and the ones that still worked flickered weakly in the downpour. Isabella pulled up in front of the main entrance and put the car in park. Nathan already had the door open. Thanks for the ride. Wait! He paused, one foot already on the pavement. Isabella was staring up at the building, her expression unreadable. The power's out? Yeah, it happens sometimes when the weather gets bad. Wiring's old. How long does it usually stay out? Nathan shrugged. Couple hours? Sometimes longer. Isabella's jaw tightened slightly. And your son is alone in there. He'll be fine. He knows where the flashlight is. Nathan! Something in her tone made him stop. Isabella turned to look at him, her gaze steady and serious. How cold does it get in your apartment when the heat's off? Nathan didn't answer. Because the truth was, it got cold. Really cold. The building's heating system was garbage, even when it worked, and without power, the temperature would drop fast. He has blankets, Nathan said finally. That's not an answer. It's the answer I've got. Bullshits him. Isabella stared at him for a long moment, then made a decision. She pulled her phone out and dialed quickly. "What are you doing?" Nathan asked. She held up a finger, waiting. Someone answered on the second ring. "Marcus, I need you to contact the utilities coordinator for Riverside Apartments on 5th and Brennan. There's a power outage. I want it fixed within the hour." She paused, listening. "I don't care if it's not our property. Make it happen." She hung up. Nathan stared at her. "You just called someone who can fix it." "Yes." "You can't just—" "I can. And I did." Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know whether to feel grateful or angry, maybe both. "Come on," Isabella said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "Let's go check on your son." You don't have to. I'm not leaving an 8-year-old alone in a freezing apartment." Her tone left no room for argument. "Let's go." She got out of the car. Nathan sat frozen for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then he shook his head, climbed out into the rain, and followed her toward the building. Shits. The stairwell was pitch black. Nathan pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight, illuminating cracked concrete steps and peeling paint. The air smelled like mildew and old cigarette smoke. "This way," he said, starting up the stairs. Isabella followed without comment, her heels clicking softly against the concrete. They climbed in silence. Nathan was acutely aware of how shabby everything looked in the harsh LED light from his phone. The water stains on the walls, the missing tiles, the graffiti someone had half-heartedly tried to paint over. This was his life. This building, these stairs, the cramped apartment waiting at the top. And now Isabella Royce was seeing all of it. He hated how much that bothered him. They reached the 4th floor, and Nathan led her down the hallway to apartment 4C. He knocked twice. "Liam, it's me. Open up." There was a scuffling sound from inside, then the click of the deadbolt. The door swung open, and Liam stood there holding a flashlight, his face pale and his eyes too wide. "Dad?" Nathan crouched down, pulling his son into a tight hug. "Hey, buddy. You okay?" Liam nodded against his shoulder. The lights went out. "I know. It's okay. They'll be back on soon." Liam pulled back, and his gaze shifted past Nathan to Isabella, who stood quietly in the hallway. "Who's that?" Liam asked. Nathan stood, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. "This is Isabella. She gave me a ride home. Isabella, this is my son, Liam." Isabella stepped forward slightly and offered a small smile. "Hi, Liam." Liam stared at her for a moment, taking in her expensive coat and the way she looked completely out of place in their dingy hallway. "Hi," he said quietly. Nathan cleared his throat. "Come on, let's get inside." They stepped into the apartment, and Nathan tried not to see it through Isabella's eyes. The cramped living room with its secondhand furniture, the kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, the peeling linoleum and water-stained ceiling. It was home. But it wasn't much. Liam closed the door behind them and locked it carefully, just like Nathan had taught him. "You hungry?" Nathan asked. Liam nodded. "Okay, give me a minute." Nathan pulled off his soaked jacket and hung it over the back of a chair. "We've got—" He stopped. Because when he opened the fridge, the light didn't come on. And when he touched the milk carton, it was already starting to warm. No power meant no refrigeration, which meant everything in here would spoil if the outage lasted too long. Nathan closed the fridge and opened the cabinet instead, pulling out a box of crackers and a jar of peanut butter. "How about a snack for now?" he said, keeping his voice light. "We'll do dinner when the power comes back." Liam didn't argue. He just nodded and sat down at the small table. Nathan glanced at Isabella, who was still standing near the door, watching quietly. "You don't have to stay," he said. "I know." But she didn't move. Nathan turned back to the counter and started making peanut butter crackers, spreading them carefully on a plate. His hands were still cold and clumsy, and he had to concentrate to keep them steady. Behind him, he heard Isabella's voice, soft and careful. "Liam, do you go to school around here?" "Yeah," Liam said. "Madison Elementary." "What grade?" "3rd. "Do you like it?" "But," Liam shrugged. "It's okay." "Yeah." Nathan could hear the careful politeness in his son's voice, the same tone he used when adults asked questions he didn't really want to answer. "What's your favorite subject?" Isabella asked. Liam hesitated. "Math, I guess. And science." "Yeah? What kind of science?" "I like space stuff, planets and stars." "That's pretty cool." Nathan set the plate of crackers on the table and sat down across from Liam. His son immediately reached for one, eating quickly like he'd been waiting all evening. Isabella pulled out the third chair and sat down carefully, folding her hands in her lap. For a moment, the three of them just sat there in the dim glow of the flashlight, listening to the rain hammer against the window. Then Isabella spoke again. "Nathan?" He looked up. "It's going to take at least an hour to get the power back on," she said quietly. "Probably longer, and it's only getting colder." Nathan knew where this was going. "We'll be fine." "Will you?" "We've dealt with worse." That's not the point." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Then what is the point?" Isabella met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. "The point is that your son is 8 years old, and he's already been alone in a freezing apartment during a blackout. The temperature is going to keep dropping, and even if the power comes back on in an hour, it'll take time for this place to warm up. So what are you suggesting?" "Come stay at my house tonight." The words hung in the air. Nathan stared at her. "You're joking." "I'm not. You don't even know us." "I know enough." "No." Nathan shook his head. "Thanks, but no." "Why not?" "Because—" He stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound like pride or stubbornness, even though that's exactly what it was. "Because we don't need charity." "It's not charity," Isabella said evenly. "It's a warm house with heat and electricity. That's it. We'll be fine here." "Nathan, I said no, Shetin." Liam looked between them, his eyes wide and uncertain. Isabella was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay." Isha. She stood, smoothing her coat. "I should go." Nathan stood too, guilt twisting in his chest even though he'd made the right call. "Thanks for the ride, and for trying to help." "You're welcome." Isabella walked to the door. Then paused with her hand on the knob. She turned back. "If you change your mind," she said quietly, "call me." She pulled a business card from her pocket and set it on the small table by the door. Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her, and the apartment felt colder somehow. Liam looked at his father. "Dad, it's really cold." Nathan sat back down, pulling his son close. "I know, buddy, but we're okay. We're always okay, right?" Liam nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Nathan closed his eyes and wondered if he'd just made a terrible mistake. An hour later, the power still hadn't come back on. The temperature in the apartment had dropped enough that Nathan could see his breath in the glow of the flashlight. Liam was curled up under every blanket they owned, shivering despite Nathan's best efforts to keep him warm. "Dad," Liam said quietly, "I'm cold." "I know, just hold on a little longer, Sa." But Nathan didn't know how much longer. The power company hadn't called back. The building super wasn't answering his phone. And the temperature kept dropping. He thought about the business card sitting by the door. No. He wasn't going to call. They'd survived worse than this. They'd get through tonight. But then Liam coughed. A harsh, rattling sound that made Nathan's chest tighten with fear. Liam had asthma. Mild, usually. Manageable. But cold air could trigger it, and they were almost out of his inhaler. Nathan made a decision. He picked up the business card, pulled out his phone, and dialed. Isabella answered on the first ring. "Nathan." "Yeah." His voice came out rough. "That offer still stand?" "Yes." "Okay." He swallowed hard. "We'll come. I'll be there in 15 minutes. The line went dead. Nathan looked at Liam, who was watching him with wide, tired eyes. "Come on, buddy," Nathan said quietly. "We're going somewhere warm." Liam didn't ask questions. He just nodded and let his father help him up. Nathan grabbed their coats, stuffed a few things into a backpack, and led his son downstairs to wait for a woman who was either incredibly kind or completely out of her mind. Maybe both. When the black car pulled up outside, Nathan took a deep breath and opened the door. The gates to Isabella's estate opened without a sound. Nathan sat in the passenger seat, Liam curled up in the back with his head against the window and watched as they drove past iron bars that probably cost more than his annual salary. The driveway stretched ahead through carefully maintained trees, their branches heavy with rain, and Nathan felt his stomach tighten with each passing second. This was a mistake. He knew it the moment they turned off the main road. Knew it when Isabella guided the car through a neighborhood where the houses sat behind walls and the streetlights actually worked. Knew it when Liam sat up in the back seat and whispered, "Dad, where are we?" "Somewhere warm," Nathan had said, because what else could he say? Now the house came into view, and Nathan's throat went dry. It wasn't a house. It was a mansion. 3 stories of stone and glass rising out of the darkness like something from a magazine spread. Warm light glowed from windows that stretched floor to ceiling, and even through the rain, Nathan could see the manicured lawn, the fountain in the circular drive, the kind of wealth that didn't just whisper, it shouted. Isabella pulled the car to a stop near the front entrance and turned off the engine. Nobody moved. "This is where you live?" Liam asked, his voice small and awed. "Yes," Isabella said simply. Nathan stared at the house, his hands gripping his knees. Every instinct screamed at him to tell her to turn around, to take them back to the cold apartment where at least he understood the rules. Because this world of perfect lawns and giant houses wasn't his, would never be his. "Nathan?" He looked at Isabella. Her expression was calm, patient. "It's just a house, and it's warm. That's all that matters right now." She was right. He knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. "Come on," Isabella said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "Let's get inside." She got out of the car, and after a moment, Nathan did too. He opened the back door and helped Liam out, keeping a hand on his son's shoulder as they followed Isabella up the wide stone steps to the front door. The entrance hall was worse than Nathan imagined. Marble floors, a chandelier that cast warm light across walls decorated with art that probably cost more than Nathan's car, back when he'd had a car. A staircase that curved up to the second floor like something out of a movie. Liam pressed closer to Nathan's side, his eyes huge. "Holy crap," Nathan muttered under his breath. "I'll pretend I didn't hear that," Isabella said, but there was the faintest hint of amusement in her voice. She led them deeper into the house, through a hallway lined with more art, past rooms that seemed to stretch on forever. Everything was clean, expensive, perfect. The kind of perfect that made Nathan hyper-aware of his wet boots tracking water across the pristine floors, his cheap jacket dripping rain onto furniture that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Finally, Isabella stopped in what appeared to be a living room, though calling it that felt inadequate. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a terrace and gardens beyond. A fireplace took up most of one wall, currently dark, but surrounded by built-in bookshelves. Cream-colored sofas faced each other across a low table made of dark wood and glass. "Wait here," Isabella said. "I'll get some towels." She disappeared down another hallway, her footsteps fading. Nathan and Liam stood frozen in the middle of the room. "Dad," Liam whispered, "are we allowed to sit down?" Nathan looked at the pristine furniture, then at their soaking wet clothes. "Probably not." They stayed standing. Isabella returned a minute later carrying an armful of towels, thick, white, the kind that probably came from some expensive boutique. She handed them over without ceremony. "Bathroom's through there if you want to change," she said, gesturing toward a door on the far side of the room. "I can have some dry clothes brought down." "We're fine," Nathan said quickly. Too quickly. Isabella studied him for a moment. "You're not fine. You're both soaking wet and freezing." "We'll dry off. It's okay." "Nathan, I said we're fine." The words came out harder than he intended. Liam looked up at him, concerned, and Nathan forced himself to take a breath. Isabella's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or just exhaustion with his stubbornness. "All right," she said quietly. "At least dry off. I'll make some tea." She left again before Nathan could argue. Nathan stood there holding the towels, feeling like an idiot. Liam tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, why are you being weird?" "I'm not being weird." "You are. You're being all—" Liam made a face, tensing his shoulders in what Nathan assumed was supposed to be an impression of him. "I don't look like that." "You do right now." Nathan sighed and handed Liam one of the towels. "Come on, let's dry off." Mom bought this pizza. They did their best, though Nathan was acutely aware that drying off didn't change the fact that their clothes were cheap, worn, and completely out of place in a house like this. When he glanced at his reflection in the dark window, he saw exactly what he was: a factory worker playing dress-up in a world he didn't belong to. Isabella returned carrying a tray with 3 mugs and a teapot that probably cost more than Nathan's couch. She set it on the coffee table and poured carefully. "Sit," she said. It wasn't a request. Nathan sat on the edge of one of the sofas, and Liam climbed up beside him, still clutching his towel like a security blanket. Isabella took the opposite sofa, curling her legs beneath her in a way that made her seem almost normal. Almost. She handed Nathan a mug. The ceramic was warm against his cold hands, and the tea smelled like something herbal and expensive. "Thank you," Nathan said quietly. Isabella nodded and handed another mug to Liam, who took it carefully with both hands. For a moment, they all just sat there, drinking tea in silence. The rain hammered against the windows, but inside it was warm and quiet and surreal. Liam finished his tea first and set the mug down carefully on the table. He looked at Isabella with the kind of directness only kids could manage. "Why did you help us?" he asked. Nathan's chest tightened. "Liam." "It's okay," Isabella said. She looked at Liam thoughtfully. "Because I could, and because it seemed like the right thing to do. But you don't know us." "Not yet. But that doesn't mean I can't help." Liam frowned, processing this. "My dad says we don't take charity." "Liam," Nathan said, his voice strained. "It's not charity," Isabella said, meeting the boy's gaze. "It's just people helping people, that's all." Liam looked at his father, then back at Isabella. "Okay." Just like that, he accepted it, because kids could do that. Accept kindness without wrapping it in pride and suspicion and all the baggage that came with being an adult who'd learned the hard way that nothing was ever free. Nathan set his mug down, staring into the remaining tea. "We'll leave first thing in the morning, soon as the power's back on." "You don't have to," Isabella said. "Yeah, we do." "Why?" "Because—" Nathan stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound ungrateful. "Because we don't belong here." Isabella was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. It was quiet for, "You're here because it's cold and your son needed somewhere warm, that's all. Don't make it more complicated than it is." But it was complicated. Everything about this was complicated. Nathan rubbed his face, suddenly exhausted. "Look, I appreciate what you're doing, really, but this—" He gestured vaguely at the house around them. "This isn't our world, and pretending it is for one night doesn't change that. I'm not asking you to pretend anything." "Then what are you asking?" Isabella met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "Just to stay. Get some sleep. Let your son be warm. Tomorrow you can go back to your life and I'll go back to mine. But tonight, just let it be simple." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to grab Liam and walk out into the rain, because at least out there he understood the rules. But Liam was warm for the first time in hours, and the exhaustion in Nathan's bones ran too deep to fight anymore. "Okay," he said quietly. "Tonight." Isabella nodded. "I'll show you to your rooms." She stood and Nathan followed, keeping Liam close as they climbed the curved staircase to the second floor. The hallway stretched in both directions, lined with doors that probably led to more rooms than Nathan could count. Isabella stopped at one door and pushed it open. "Liam can stay here." The room was bigger than Nathan's entire apartment. A massive bed sat against one wall, covered in what looked like a cloud of white blankets. There was a desk, a bookshelf, a window seat overlooking the dark gardens. It looked like something from a hotel, impersonal but expensive. Liam walked in slowly, his eyes wide. "This is for me?" "Just for tonight," Nathan said quickly. Isabella ignored him. "There's a bathroom through that door, clean towels, anything you need. And if you get hungry, the kitchen is downstairs. Help yourself." Liam looked at his father. "Can I?" Nathan nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, buddy. Go ahead." Liam set his backpack down carefully on the floor and walked to the window, pressing his hands against the glass to look out at the rain. Isabella touched Nathan's arm, lightly. "Your room's across the hall." Nathan followed her to another door. The room beyond was similar, large, expensive, impersonal. A king-size bed dominated the space, and through another door he could see a bathroom that looked bigger than his kitchen. "There are clothes in the closet if you want to change," Isabella said. "They might be a little big, but they're dry." "Whose clothes?" "Does it matter?" Nathan looked at her. "Yeah, it does." Isabella sighed. "They're my brother's. He stays here sometimes. He won't mind." Nathan nodded slowly. He didn't love the idea of wearing someone else's clothes, but the alternative was sleeping in wet jeans, and he was too tired to care about pride anymore. "Thank you," he said. Isabella lingered in the doorway. "If you need anything, we'll be fine." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good night, Nathan." "Night." She closed the door softly, and Nathan was alone. He stood in the middle of the room, looking around at the furniture that cost more than everything he owned combined, and felt the weight of the day crash down on him all at once. He was so tired. Tired of working double shifts. Tired of scraping by. Tired of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Tired of being the only parent, the only provider, the only person responsible for keeping Liam's world from falling apart. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. He thought about Sophie, about how she would have handled tonight, probably with grace and gratitude, instead of the defensive pride that made Nathan want to run. She'd always been better at accepting help, better at trusting people, better at everything, really. Nathan's chest ached. 3 years. 3 years since the accident, and he still didn't know how to do this without her, still didn't know how to be enough for Liam on his own. He stood abruptly, crossed to the closet, and pulled out a plain t-shirt and sweatpants, changed quickly. The clothes were too big, hanging loose on his frame, but they were dry and warm. Nathan checked on Liam before going to bed. His son was already asleep, curled up in the middle of the giant bed, his face peaceful in a way Nathan hadn't seen in months. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching him breathe. Then he went back to his own room, climbed into the too-soft bed, and fell asleep almost immediately. He dreamed of rain and empty apartments, and his wife's laugh echoing through rooms he couldn't find. Nathan woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment he couldn't remember where he was. Then it came back in pieces. The storm, the blackout, Isabella's car, this house that felt like a museum. He sat up, disoriented. His phone said it was almost 9 in the morning. 9. He never slept past 6, even on his days off. Nathan got out of bed quickly, pulling on his jeans from yesterday, still damp but wearable, and headed across the hall to check on Liam. The room was empty. Panic flared in Nathan's chest. He hurried downstairs, following the sound of voices, and found the kitchen. It was enormous. All white marble and stainless steel, with an island in the center big enough to seat 6 people. Liam sat at that island eating pancakes while Isabella stood at the stove, spatula in hand, looking completely at ease in designer jeans and a simple sweater. "Morning," Isabella said when she saw Nathan. Liam turned, grinning with syrup on his chin. "Dad, Isabella made pancakes." Nathan stared at them, at his son, who looked happier than he had in weeks, at Isabella, who apparently made pancakes for strange kids in her kitchen, at the whole surreal scene that shouldn't exist but somehow did. "You didn't have to do that, Nathan said. "I know." Isabella flipped a pancake expertly. "But I was making breakfast anyway, and Liam was hungry. You want some?" Nathan hesitated. "Yeah, okay, thanks." He sat next to Liam, who was attacking his pancakes with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't eaten a real breakfast in too long. Isabella slid a plate in front of Nathan. 3 perfect pancakes, butter melting in the center. "There's coffee too," she said, gesturing to a pot on the counter. Nathan got up, poured himself a cup, and tried not to think about how the coffee maker probably cost more than his rent. The coffee was good, really good. Of course it was. He sat back down and ate in silence, watching Isabella move around the kitchen with the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly where everything was. It was strange seeing her like this. Less intimidating somehow, more human. "The power came back on at your building around 3 in the morning, Isabella said, not looking up from the stove. "I got a call from the utilities crew." Nathan nodded. "Thanks for that, for making it happen." "You're welcome. Liam finished his pancakes and slid off the stool. Can I look around? Liam, Nathan started. It's fine, Isabella said. Just stay on this floor. Okay? Okay! Liam darted off, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Nathan watched him go, then turned back to Isabella. You didn't have to let us stay, or make breakfast, or any of this. Isabella set the spatula down and leaned against the counter. Isabella set the chas, crossing her arms. I know. So why did you? I told you last night because I could. That's not a real answer. It's the only one I have. Nathan studied her, trying to understand. People don't just do stuff like this. Not for strangers. Some people do. Not in my experience. Isabella's expression softened slightly. Maybe you've been meeting the wrong people. Nathan huffed, not quite a laugh. Yeah, maybe. They were quiet for a moment. Then Isabella spoke again, her voice careful. Can I ask you something? Sure. Liam's mother, is she dead? Nathan said flatly. 3 years ago. Car accident. Isabella's face went still. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. It must be hard, raising him alone. Nathan looked down at his coffee. It's the only option I've got, so I do it. That doesn't make it less hard. No, Nathan admitted. It doesn't. Isabella was quiet, and when Nathan looked up, he saw something in her expression he couldn't quite name. Understanding, maybe, or sympathy. Either way, it made him uncomfortable. We should probably get going, Nathan said, standing abruptly. You've done enough, more than enough. Nathan, thank you. Really? But we need to get back to our lives. Isabella straightened, her expression shifting back to something more neutral. All right, I'll drive you. You don't? I do. It's pouring rain again, and I'm not letting you walk. Nathan wanted to argue, but he was smart enough to know when he'd lost. Okay, thanks. He went to find Liam and gather their things. His son protested leaving, of course he did, but Nathan was firm. They didn't belong here. The sooner they left, the better. Isabella drove them back in silence, the city passing by outside the rain-streaked windows. When they pulled up in front of the apartment building, Nathan could see lights on in windows. Power was back. Thanks again, Nathan said as he opened the door. For everything. Bah, si. What de simple. Isabella nodded. Take care of yourself, Nathan. And Liam. Yeah, you too. He helped Liam out of the car and watched as Isabella drove away, the black vehicle disappearing around the corner. Then Nathan took his son's hand and led him back upstairs to their cold, cramped apartment that suddenly felt smaller than ever. Ma pas. 2 days later, Nathan got promoted. It happened so fast he almost didn't believe it. 1 minute he was on the factory floor, assembling parts like he had for the past 2 years. The next, his supervisor was telling him to report to the operations manager's office. Nathan's stomach dropped. In his experience, getting called to the manager's office was never good news. But when he knocked on the door and stepped inside, the operations manager, a tired-looking man named Harris, actually smiled. Hail, good, sit down. Nathan sat, his mind racing through everything he might have done wrong. Had he missed a shift? Screwed up an order? Failed some metric he didn't know about? Relax, Harris said, apparently reading his expression. You're not in trouble. Okay, Nathan said slowly. We're moving you to a new position, quality control supervisor. Starts Monday. Nathan blinked. What? You heard me. Quality control, it's a promotion. Better pay, better hours, actual benefits. I don't... Nathan shook his head, trying to process. Why? Harris shrugged. Someone upstairs noticed you've been putting in the work, showing initiative. Seemed like a waste to keep you on the floor. Someone upstairs? Corporate. I don't ask questions when they tell me to promote someone, I just do it. Harris slid a folder across the desk. Here's the paperwork. Look it over, sign it, bring it back tomorrow. Nathan took the folder, still stunned. This is real? He's very real. Congratulations, Hale. Nathan left the office in a daze. A promotion. Actual benefits, which meant health insurance for Liam's asthma. Better hours, which meant more time with his son. better pay, which meant maybe, finally, they could stop living one emergency away from disaster. It was too good to be true. And Nathan had learned a long time ago that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. He spent the rest of his shift turning it over in his mind, trying to figure out the angle. But he couldn't see one. The promotion was real. The paperwork was legitimate. The pay increase was documented in black and white. By the time Nathan's shift ended, he'd almost convinced himself to just accept it. Then he saw the signature at the bottom of one of the approval forms. Isabella Royce. Nathan stared at the name, his chest tightening. She'd done this. Somehow, she'd made this happen. And that meant it wasn't about his work or his initiative or anyone noticing anything. It was charity, pity, a handout from someone who felt sorry for the poor single dad she'd picked up in the rain. Nathan crumpled the paperwork in his fist and shoved it into his pocket. He didn't go home. He went to the only place he knew to find Isabella Royce. SAS. The Royce Consolidated Building was downtown. 30 stories of glass and steel in the financial district, the kind of building Nathan had passed 100 times without ever thinking he'd step inside. He stood outside in the fading light, staring up at the building, and almost turned around. But the anger in his chest wouldn't let him. Nathan pushed through the revolving doors into a lobby that was all marble and modern art. A security desk sat to one side, manned by a guy in a suit who looked at Nathan like he'd just tracked mud across a white carpet. "Can I help you?" the guard asked, his tone making it clear he doubted it. "I need to see Isabella Royce." The guard's eyebrows went up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Then I can't help you." "Look, just call up there and tell her Nathan Hale is here. Sir, Ms. Royce doesn't take walk-ins. If you'd like to schedule, just call her." The guard's expression hardened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Nathan's jaw clenched. This was stupid. He should leave. Go home. Forget about the whole thing. But then he thought about the paperwork in his pocket, about Isabella's name signed at the bottom, and the anger flared again. "Fine," Nathan said. "I'll wait." He turned and sat down on one of the lobby benches, crossing his arms. The guard watched him for a moment, then picked up his phone and spoke quietly into it. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and Isabella stepped out. She was wearing a sharp gray suit, her hair pulled back, looking every inch the CEO, Nathan, had tried not to think about for the past 2 days. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or concern. She crossed the lobby quickly. "Nathan, what are you doing here?" Nathan stood. "We need to talk." Isabella glanced at the security guard, then back at Nathan. "All right, come with me." She led him to the elevator, and they rode up in silence. Nathan could feel her watching him, but he kept his eyes on the numbers ticking upward. They got off on the 20th floor and walked through a maze of hallways to an office with Isabella's name on a placard beside the door. Inside was exactly what Nathan expected. Huge windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture, everything clean and perfect. Isabella closed the door and turned to face him. "What's going on?" Nathan pulled the crumpled paperwork from his pocket and threw it on her desk. This is what's going on." Isabella looked at the papers, then at Nathan. "Your promotion?" "My promotion that you arranged." "Yes, I did." "Why?" Isabella crossed her arms. "Because you're good at your job. Because you're smart and you work hard and you deserve better than the position you were in." "That's crap." "Excuse me?" "You don't know anything about how good I am at my job. You saw me for one night. That doesn't give you the right to—" Nathan gestured angrily at the papers. "To just hand me things because you feel sorry for me." Isabella's expression went cold. "I don't feel sorry for you." "Then what is this?" "It's recognizing someone's potential and giving them an opportunity. That's it." "No." Nathan shook his head. "It's you trying to fix something that isn't your problem. I'm not some charity case you can—" "I never said you were—" "You didn't have to." "This—" Nathan grabbed the papers and shook them. "This says it for you. You think I can't make it on my own, so you swoop in and— That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Isabella? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like pity." Isabella's jaw tightened. "You want to know why I did it? Fine. I did it because I looked at your file and saw someone who's been stuck in the same position for 2 years despite consistently outperforming everyone around him. I saw someone who's been passed over for promotions because he doesn't have a degree, even though he's twice as smart as half the people supervising him. I saw potential being wasted, and I fixed it. That's what I do. That's my job. What's good? Your job is to run a company, not micromanage factory workers. My job is to make sure good people get recognized. And you're good, Nathan, whether you want to admit it or not. Nathan stared at her, his anger warring with something else he didn't want to name. I don't need you to save me, he said quietly. Isabella's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to help you. There's a difference. Not to me. They stood in silence for a moment, the tension thick between them. Finally, Isabella spoke. The promotion is real. It's based on your actual work record. If you don't want it, fine, turn it down. But don't accuse me of pity when all I did was give you something you earned. Nathan looked down at the papers in his hands, at the pay increase that would change his life, at the benefits that would mean Liam could see a real doctor when he needed to, at the signature that proved Isabella Royce was either the kindest person he'd ever met or playing some game he didn't understand. I can't accept this, Nathan said. Why not? Because I don't know what you want from me. Isabella met his gaze. I don't want anything from you, Nathan. I just want you to let yourself have something good for once. Nathan's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, wanted to throw the papers back at her and walk out. But the truth was, he was tired of fighting, tired of being so damn proud that he couldn't see when someone was genuinely trying to help. Okay, he said quietly. Isabella blinked. Okay? I'll take it. The promotion. But no more surprises. If you're going to do something that affects my life, you ask me first. Deal? A small smile touched Isabella's lips. Deal. Nathan nodded and turned to leave. Nathan? He stopped at the door. For what it's worth, Isabella said, I meant what I said. You earned this. Nathan looked back at her, this woman who'd upended his life in the span of a week, and managed a small nod. Then he left, taking the paperwork with him. Refuge. The new position started the following Monday. Nathan showed up early, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first day on the factory floor. The quality control office was on the third floor of the facility, a space he'd never been allowed into before. It was cleaner than the floor, quieter, with actual windows that let in natural light. His supervisor was a woman named Carter, mid-40s with sharp eyes and zero patience for incompetence. She walked Nathan through the job quickly, efficiently, like she'd done it 100 times before. You'll be reviewing production samples, checking for defects, documenting issues, and reporting to me, she said. It's detail work. You good with details? Yes, Nathan said. Good, because if you're not, you'll know pretty fast. Carter handed him a tablet and a clipboard. Questions? No. Then get to work. Nathan did. It turned out he was good at it, really good. The work required focus and precision, but it also let him think. Let him solve problems instead of just following orders. For the first time in years, Nathan felt like he was using his brain instead of just his hands. The hours were better, too. He worked 8 to 5 instead of the overnight shifts he'd been pulling, which meant he actually saw Liam in the evenings, could help with homework, could make dinner instead of leaving cereal and a note. The first paycheck came 2 weeks later, and Nathan stared at the number until his eyes blurred. It was real. He deposited the check, paid the overdue electric bill, bought groceries without checking prices, and still had money left over. That night, he took Liam out for pizza at a real restaurant, not the cheap frozen kind they usually ate at home. Liam ordered a personal pan with extra cheese and chocolate milk, and Nathan watched his son eat with the kind of joy that came from something as simple as having enough. Dad, Liam said between bites, are we rich now? Nathan almost laughed. No, buddy, we're not rich, but we have pizza. Bitko samichi. Yeah, we have pizza. Si dos. Liam grinned, sauce smeared across his face, and Nathan felt something tight in his chest loosen just a little. Maybe things were finally turning around. Maybe Isabella Royce had actually changed his life for the better. And maybe, just maybe, Nathan could learn to accept that without letting pride destroy it. 3 weeks into the new position, Nathan ran into Isabella in the parking lot. He'd just finished his shift and was heading toward the bus stop when he saw her standing beside her car, talking on the phone. She looked frustrated, one hand pressed to her forehead, her shoulders tight with tension. Nathan hesitated. Part of him wanted to just keep walking, avoid the awkwardness of another encounter. But she'd done a lot for him, whether he wanted to admit it or not, and walking past without acknowledging her felt wrong. He changed direction and headed toward her car. Isabella noticed him approaching and held up a finger wrapping up her call. I understand that, Marcus, but we can't push the timeline again. Tell them we need answers by Friday or we're moving to the backup supplier. She paused, listening. I don't care if it's difficult. Make it happen. She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket, turning to Nathan with an expression that was equal parts tired and annoyed. Bad day? Nathan asked. Long day, Isabella corrected. There's a difference. Yeah, I know the feeling. They stood there for a moment in the fading afternoon light, the factory humming behind them. Nathan shoved his hands into his pockets, searching for something to say that wouldn't sound stupid. I never really thanked you, he said finally, for the promotion. I was angry when I found out, but it's changed things. For me and Liam, so thank you. Isabella's expression softened. You're welcome. How is Liam? Good. Better. He's got a field trip coming up next week that I can actually afford now, so that's something. Where's he going? Science Museum. He's been talking about it nonstop. Isabella smiled, small but genuine. He seems like a good kid. He is. Sometimes I don't know how I got lucky enough to, Nathan stopped, the words catching in his throat. Yeah, he's great. Isabella studied him for a moment, and Nathan had the uncomfortable feeling she could see straight through him to all the doubt and fear he tried to keep buried. You're doing better than you think, she said quietly. You don't know that. I do, actually. I've seen enough people fumble their way through life to recognize when someone's genuinely trying. You are. Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Isabella glanced at her watch. Have you eaten? Well, that's... Not yet. I usually grab something on the way home. There's a diner about 10 minutes from here. You want to get dinner? My treat. Nathan's first instinct was to say no. But standing in the parking lot looking at this woman who'd somehow become tangled up in his life, he found himself curious. About her. About why she kept showing up. About whether there was something here beyond charity and obligation. Okay, he said. Yeah, dinner sounds good. Isabella's eyebrows went up slightly like she'd expected him to refuse. All right, follow me. They took separate cars to a diner called Rosie's that sat on the edge of an industrial area. The kind of place with vinyl booths and laminated menus and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner too long. It was nothing like the restaurants Isabella probably frequented, but she slid into the booth across from Nathan without hesitation. A waitress appeared almost immediately, setting down 2 menus. What can I get you to drink? Coffee, Nathan said. Same, Isabella added. The waitress left, and they sat in silence for a moment, both scanning the menu even though Nathan already knew what he was going to order. The meatloaf was decent here, and it came with mashed potatoes that were better than they had any right to be. So, Isabella said, setting her menu down, tell me something about yourself that isn't work or Liam. Nathan looked up. Why? Because I'm curious. About what? About you. Isabella leaned back in the booth, her gaze steady. You're not an easy person to get to know, Nathan. Maybe I like it that way. Maybe. Or maybe you're just scared of letting people in. Nathan's jaw tightened. You don't know me well enough to say that. Then prove me wrong. Tell me something. To be. The waitress returned with their coffee, and Nathan took his time adding sugar and cream, buying himself a few seconds to think. He didn't like this. Didn't like being pushed to share pieces of himself he'd spent years keeping locked away. But there was something about Isabella that made him want to try. I used to build things, he said finally, before Liam was born. Furniture, mostly. Tables, chairs, stuff like that. Nothing fancy, but it was, I don't know. I liked working with my hands, creating something from scratch. Isabella tilted her head slightly. Why'd you stop? Time, money, life. Nathan shrugged. When Sophie died, I sold most of my tools to cover the funeral costs. And after that, I was just trying to survive. Didn't have the energy for hobbies. Do you miss it? Well, Nathan considered this question. Yeah, sometimes I do. You should start again. With what money? What time? You have more of both now than you did a month ago. She wasn't wrong, but the idea of picking up woodworking again felt almost painful, like reopening a part of himself he'd deliberately shut down because it hurt too much to remember who he used to be. Maybe, Nathan said, not committing to anything. The waitress came back and they ordered meatloaf for Nathan, a turkey sandwich for Isabella. When she left, Isabella wrapped her hands around her coffee mug and looked at Nathan thoughtfully. Can I ask you something personal? You're going to anyway, aren't you? Isabella's mouth twitched. Probably. What was she like? Sophie. Nathan went still. People didn't usually ask about Sophie. They offered condolences, sure, or said they were sorry for his loss, but they didn't actually ask what she was like. Didn't want to know. She was... Nathan stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound hollow. She was better than me. At pretty much everything. She was patient where I was stubborn, kind where I was defensive. She made people feel seen, you know, like they mattered. She sounds incredible. She was. Nathan stared into his coffee. And then she was gone, and I had no idea how to be both parents at once. Still don't, honestly. But you're doing it anyway. Because I don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Isabella said quietly. You could have given up. A lot of people would have. But you didn't. Nathan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something in her expression that surprised him. Not pity, not even sympathy, just understanding, like she knew what it felt like to keep going when everything inside you wanted to quit. What about you? Nathan asked. You ever been married? No. Why not? Isabella's smile turned wry. Because I'm difficult, demanding, and married to my work. Not exactly qualities men line up for. I don't believe that. Which part? The part where you pretend that's the real reason. Isabella was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. My father built Royce Consolidated from nothing. He was brilliant, ruthless, and completely consumed by the business. He died 5 years ago and left everything to me. The company, the expectations, the weight of carrying on his legacy. I've spent every day since trying to prove I deserve it. To who? Everyone? Myself. Him, maybe, even though he's gone. Isabella looked out the window at the darkening sky. The problem with building walls to keep everyone out is that, eventually, you're alone inside them, and you start to wonder if maybe you did it to yourself. Nathan understood that better than he wanted to admit. Their food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence. It wasn't until Nathan was halfway through his meatloaf that he realized this felt almost normal. Like two people having dinner together instead of a CEO and a factory worker navigating the weird space between obligation and something else. When the check came, Isabella grabbed it before Nathan could. I said my treat, she reminded him. Yeah, but Nathan, let me buy you dinner. It's not going to kill you. But me, bam. He sat back, raising his hands in surrender. Fine. Thank you. They walked out to the parking lot together, and Nathan stopped beside his beat-up truck. Isabella paused a few feet away, keys in hand. This was nice, she said. Yeah, it was. We should do it again sometime. Nathan looked at her, standing there in the fading light, and felt something shift in his chest, something he wasn't ready to name. Maybe we should, he said. Isabella smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm, and for a moment Nathan forgot about all the reasons this was complicated. Then she got in her car and drove away, and Nathan stood in the parking lot wondering what the hell he was getting himself into. The field trip happened on a Thursday. Nathan had taken the morning off to help chaperone, which felt like a small miracle in itself. A year ago, taking time off would have meant losing pay they couldn't afford to lose. Now, he had paid time off. Actual benefits. The kind of stability he'd stopped believing was possible. The Science Museum was downtown, a massive building full of interactive exhibits, and enough stimulation to send 33rd graders into overdrive. Nathan was assigned to a group of 5 kids, including Liam, and spent the first hour trying to keep them from touching everything at once. Mr. Hale, can we go to the planetarium? Mr. Hale, is it true you can see atoms with those microscopes? Mr. Hale, Tommy said space doesn't have sound, but I heard laser noises in Star Wars, so who's right? Nathan answered questions, redirected wandering children, and tried not to lose anyone in the crowd. Liam stayed close, his eyes huge as he took in everything around him. They were standing in front of an exhibit about the solar system when Nathan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, expecting a work email. Instead, it was a text from Isabella. How's the field trip? Nathan stared at the message, surprised. He hadn't mentioned the field trip to her since that conversation in the parking lot weeks ago. The fact that she remembered felt significant somehow. He typed back quickly, chaotic. Good chaotic, though. Liam's having a great time. The response came almost immediately. Good. Take a picture of him. I want to see. Nathan glanced at Liam, who was currently pressing his face against the glass of a meteor display, completely absorbed. Nathan snapped a quick photo and sent it. A moment later, another message appeared. He looks happy. You're doing great, Nathan. Nathan's chest tightened. He typed a response, deleted it, typed another one, then finally settled on, thanks. He shoved the phone back into his pocket and tried to focus on the exhibits. But Isabella's words stuck with him for the rest of the day. By the time they got back to school, Nathan was exhausted. Liam, on the other hand, was wired, talking nonstop about everything they'd seen. Dad, did you know Jupiter has 67 moons? 67! And there's one called Europa that might have an ocean under the ice and maybe even aliens. That's pretty cool, buddy. And the planetarium showed us what the Milky Way looks like from outside, and it's this huge spiral, and we're just this tiny dot on one arm, and Liam kept talking all the way home, through dinner, through his bath, right up until Nathan tucked him into bed. Best day ever, Liam said, his eyes already drooping. Nathan smoothed the hair back from his son's forehead. Yeah? Yeah. Liam yawned. Thanks for coming, Dad. Wouldn't have missed it. Che. Liam was asleep within minutes, his face peaceful and content. Nathan stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching him breathe, and felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. Hope. The kind of hope that made you think maybe things could actually get better. Maybe life didn't have to be an endless grind of survival. Maybe there was room for happiness, for stability, for more. He thought about Isabella, about the text she'd sent, about the dinner they'd shared and the way she looked at him like she saw something worth seeing. Nathan shook his head and closed Liam's door. He was getting ahead of himself, reading into things that probably didn't mean anything. Isabella was just being nice, that was all. Wasn't it? Bans. The charity gala came out of nowhere. Nathan was reviewing production reports when Carter appeared at his desk, looking uncomfortable. Hale, got a minute? Sure, what's up? Carter glanced around, then lowered her voice. Corporate's hosting a charity event next Saturday. Big fancy thing downtown. They're requiring supervisors and management to attend. Nathan frowned. Okay, why are you telling me? Because you're management now. Quality control supervisors count. Nathan's stomach dropped. You're joking. I wish I was. Look, I hate these things too, but it's mandatory. Black tie, donations expected, the whole deal. Carter slid an invitation across his desk. Details are in there. Try not to look too miserable. She walked away, leaving Nathan staring at the thick cream-colored envelope. He opened it carefully. Inside was an invitation printed on expensive cardstock announcing the annual Royce Consolidated Charity Gala, benefiting children's hospitals across the state. Cocktail hour at 7, dinner at 8. Dancing to follow. Black tie required. Nathan had never owned a tux in his life. He thought about not going, about calling in sick or finding some excuse. But Carter had said it was mandatory, and Nathan wasn't about to risk the best job he'd ever had over social anxiety. So he did what he always did when faced with something he didn't know how to handle. He called the one person who might understand. Isabella answered on the third ring. Nathan, everything okay? Yeah, fine, He stopped, suddenly feeling ridiculous. I got invited to this gala thing. The charity event your company's hosting. Right, your management now. That means you're on the list. I don't know how to do this stuff, Isabella. I don't own a tux. I don't know what to say to these people. I'm going to look like... Like what? Like exactly what I am. A factory worker pretending to be something he's not. Isabella was quiet for a moment. Can you meet me tomorrow during your lunch break? Why? Just trust me. There's a place downtown. I'll text you the address. Isabella. Tomorrow, Nathan. I'll see you there. She hung up before he could argue. The next day, Nathan followed the address Isabella had sent to a men's clothing store in the expensive part of downtown. The kind of place with suits displayed in the window like works of art and a doorman who looked at Nathan like he'd wandered into the wrong neighborhood. Nathan almost turned around, but then he saw Isabella waiting inside, and somehow that made it easier to walk through the door. You came, she said, smiling. You made it sound important. It is. Isabella gestured to a man hovering nearby, tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of posture that suggested military background. This is Eric. He's going to help you find something to wear. Nathan looked at Eric, then at Isabella. I can't afford this place. You're not paying, Isabella said simply. Isabella, consider it a work expense. You're representing the company at a company event. We cover the cost of appropriate attire. She said it so matter-of-factly that Nathan almost believed it was true. Almost. But he was too tired to fight, and the truth was, he needed help. So he let Eric measure him, pin him into jackets, adjust sleeves and pant legs while Isabella sat in a chair nearby, offering opinions when asked. They settled on a classic black tux that fit better than anything Nathan had ever worn. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. You look good, Isabella said from behind him. Nathan turned. I look like I'm playing dress-up. You look like you belong. Isabella stood and walked closer, adjusting his bow tie slightly. Trust me, no one's going to question it. Her hands lingered on the tie for just a second longer than necessary, and Nathan found himself acutely aware of how close she was standing. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome. Eric packaged everything up, and Isabella handed over her credit card without blinking. Nathan watched the transaction with a mixture of gratitude and discomfort, knowing he should protest, but also knowing it wouldn't change anything. They walked out together into the afternoon sunlight. Saturday night, Isabella said. I'll see you there. You'll be there? She smiled. I'm hosting it. Of course I'll be there. Nathan nodded, his stomach already twisting with nerves. Nathan, Isabella said, her voice softer. You're going to be fine. I promise. He wanted to believe her. Saturday arrived too quickly. Nathan spent the morning pacing the apartment, the tux hanging in his closet like a threat. Liam's babysitter showed up at 6, a neighbor's teenage daughter who Liam actually liked, and Nathan went through the usual instructions twice before forcing himself to get ready. The tux fit perfectly. Eric had been good at his job, but when Nathan looked at himself in the mirror, all he saw was someone pretending to be something he wasn't. You look fancy, Liam said from the doorway. Nathan turned. Yeah? Yeah, like a spy or something. Nathan managed a smile. Thanks, buddy. Are you nervous? A little. How come? Because I don't really fit in with the people who go to these things. Liam frowned. But you're going, so you fit in. Kids had a way of cutting through complexity like it was nothing. Nathan crouched down to Liam's level. You're right. I'll be fine. Be good for Sarah, okay? Okay. Love you, Dad. Love you too. Nathan left before he could second-guess himself. The gala was being held at the Grand Marquis Hotel, a historic building downtown with marble columns and chandeliers that probably cost more than Nathan's entire apartment building. He parked 3 blocks away. No way was his beat-up truck pulling up to valet, and walked to the entrance. The lobby was already filling with guests. Men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns that sparkled under the lights. Everyone looked like they belonged in a magazine spread. Nathan took a breath and stepped inside. For the first 20 minutes, he stood near the bar nursing a glass of champagne he didn't particularly want, watching people mingle. He recognized a few faces from work, other supervisors, managers, people he passed in hallways, but they all seemed to know how to work the room in a way Nathan didn't. He was seriously considering leaving when someone spoke beside him. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." Nathan turned to find a man about his age, dark hair, easy smile, holding a whiskey. "That obvious?" Nathan asked. "Only to people who feel the same way." The man extended his hand. "David Chen. I run logistics for the Northern Division." Nathan shook his hand. "Nathan Hale, quality control." "Ah, you're the guy Isabella promoted." David's smile widened. "I heard about that. Good for you." Word travels fast. In this company, always. David took a sip of his drink. "How are you finding it? The new position?" "It's good. Better hours, better pay. Can't complain." "But you're complaining anyway." Nathan huffed. "Not about the job. Just this." He gestured vaguely at the room. "I don't know how to do this." David nodded knowingly. "Nobody does, really. We all just fake it and hope no one notices." "You seem pretty comfortable." "I've had practice. Been doing these events for 5 years. Trust me, the first one I attended, I spilled wine on a board member's wife and called her by the wrong name. You'll survive." Nathan felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. "Thanks, I think." They talked for a while longer, and Nathan found himself relaxing slightly. David was easy to talk to, unguarded in a way most people here weren't. He pointed out various executives and board members, giving Nathan the kind of background information that made the event feel less intimidating. Then the crowd shifted, and Nathan saw Isabella. She was across the room wearing a dark blue gown that caught the light when she moved. Her hair was down for once, falling in loose waves over her shoulders. She was talking to a group of older men in suits, her expression polite but controlled. Nathan couldn't look away. "That's a dangerous look," David said quietly. Nathan snapped his attention back. "What?" "The way you were just looking at Isabella." David's expression was knowing. "Careful, man. That path gets complicated fast." It's not like that." "Sure it's not." David clapped him on the shoulder. "Come on, let's get some food before they make us sit through speeches." They moved toward the dining room, but Nathan's gaze kept drifting back to Isabella. And once, just once, she looked up and met his eyes across the room. She smiled, and Nathan's heart did something stupid in his chest. Dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as Nathan expected. He was seated at a table with people he didn't know, other managers and their spouses, all making polite conversation about things Nathan had no context for: golf tournaments, vacation homes, stock portfolios. He smiled and nodded and said as little as possible. It wasn't until dessert was being served that someone addressed him directly. "So Nathan," the woman to his left said. She was probably in her 50s, dripping in jewelry. "What did you do before joining Royce Consolidated?" "Factory work, mostly," Nathan said. Whatever was hiring, her smile became fixed. "How industrious. And where did you attend university?" "I didn't." The table went quiet. "Oh," the woman said, her tone carefully neutral. "Well, that's certainly unusual for management." "Besmazgi dishes. Isabella Royce seems to think he's qualified," someone else said, a man across the table with gray hair and a condescending smirk. Though one wonders if that promotion was based on merit or other factors. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Nathan's jaw clenched. "I earned my position." "Of course you did," the man said, his tone suggesting he believed the exact opposite. Nathan was about to say something he'd regret when a voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" Everyone turned. Isabella stood beside the table, her expression pleasant but her eyes ice cold. "Ms. Royce," the gray-haired man said, standing quickly. "This mate Scarets. We were just getting to know Mr. Hale." "Were you?" It wasn't a question. Isabella's gaze swept the table. "I hope you're all being welcoming. Nathan's one of our best supervisors. Smart, dedicated, and frankly more competent than half the management team. I'd hate to think anyone was suggesting otherwise." The silence was deafening. "Of course not," the woman beside Nathan said quickly. "We were just making conversation." "Good." Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Nathan, could I borrow you for a moment?" Nathan stood, grateful for the escape. He followed Isabella away from the table, acutely aware of the eyes tracking their movement. "You okay?" Isabella asked once they were out of earshot. "Fine. You're a terrible liar." "Yeah." Nathan stopped walking. "They think I slept my way into this job." That's what they were implying. Isabella's expression hardened. "I know. And that doesn't bother you?" "Of course it bothers me. But I can't control what people think, Nathan. Neither can you. The only thing that matters is the truth." "Which is what?" "That you earned this. That you're good at what you do. That anyone who suggests otherwise is an idiot." Isabella's voice was fierce, protective in a way that made Nathan's chest ache. "Don't let them make you feel small." Nathan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something in her eyes he hadn't let himself acknowledge before. She cared. Not as a boss, not as someone fulfilling an obligation. She actually cared. "Dance with me," Isabella said suddenly. Nathan blinked. "What?" "Dance with me. They're watching anyway. Might as well give them something to actually talk about." "Isabella, oh, please." The word was soft, almost vulnerable, and Nathan found himself nodding before he could think better of it. Isabella led him to the dance floor where a few couples were already swaying to music played by a live band. She turned to face him, and Nathan hesitated. "I don't really know how to—" "Just follow my lead." Isabella stepped close, placing one hand on his shoulder. Nathan put his hand on her waist, feeling the warmth of her skin through the fabric of her dress. Their other hands clasped together, and she began to move, guiding him through steps he barely registered. "You're doing fine," she murmured. Nathan wasn't sure if she was talking about dancing or something else entirely. They moved together in silence, the noise of the gala fading into background static. Nathan was acutely aware of how close they were, of the way Isabella fit against him, of the fact that this felt nothing like charity or obligation. This felt real. "Thank you," Nathan said quietly, "for what you said back there. I meant it." "I know, that's what makes it worse." Isabella pulled back slightly to look at him. "Worse?" "Because I don't know what to do with this. With you. With whatever this is." Nathan's voice was rough, honest in a way that scared him. "I don't know how to let people in, Isabella. I'm not good at it." "Neither am I." "Then what are we doing?" Isabella's hand tightened on his shoulder. "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." Nathan's breath caught. They were standing in the middle of a crowded dance floor, surrounded by people who thought they knew exactly what was happening, and Nathan realized he didn't care. He cared about the woman in front of him, about the way she looked at him like he mattered, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to do this alone anymore. "Isabella!" His phone buzzed violently in his pocket. Nathan froze. The only person who had this number was the babysitter, and she'd been told only to call in an emergency. "I'm sorry," Nathan said, stepping back. "I have to—" He pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls, 2 texts. "Liam's having trouble breathing. I called 911. They're on the way." The world tilted. Nathan didn't remember moving, but suddenly he was running through the hotel, Isabella calling his name behind him. He burst through the doors into the night air and kept running toward his truck, his heart hammering in his chest. Liam. He had to get to Liam. Behind him, he heard Isabella's voice, sharp and urgent. "Nathan, wait! I'll drive you!" But Nathan was already in his truck, the engine roaring to life, his hand shaking so badly he could barely grip the wheel. And all he could think was, please. Not again. Please don't take him too. Nathan barely remembered the drive to the hospital. He ran 2 red lights and took corners too fast, his mind a white noise of panic. The tux felt like a straitjacket, the bow tie choking him. He ripped it off with one hand while steering with the other, throwing it onto the passenger seat. Liam. Liam couldn't breathe. Liam was in an ambulance right now, scared and alone, and Nathan wasn't there. He should have been there. The emergency room parking lot was chaos. Ambulances, people rushing in and out, the harsh fluorescent lights making everything feel surreal. Nathan abandoned his truck in the first spot he found and sprinted toward the entrance. Inside was worse. The smell of antiseptic and fear. People crying. A kid screaming somewhere down a hallway. Nathan stumbled to the reception desk, his voice coming out desperate and broken. My son, Liam Hale. They brought him in. Asthma attack. Where is he? The woman behind the desk looked up slowly, her expression professionally detached. Let me check. She typed something into her computer. He's being evaluated now. You'll need to wait. I need to see him. Sir, the doctors are with him. You'll have to wait until... He's 8 years old and he's scared. I need to see my son. The woman's expression softened slightly. I understand, but... Nathan... He turned. Sarah, the babysitter, was sitting in the waiting area, her face blotchy from crying. She stood and hurried over. I'm so sorry, she said, the words tumbling out. He was fine, and then he just started coughing and he couldn't stop. And I gave him his inhaler, but it wasn't working, and I didn't know what else to do, so I called 911 and... It's okay, Nathan said, even though nothing was okay. You did the right thing. Where is he, Aunt? They took him back about 15 minutes ago. They wouldn't let me go with him because I'm not family. Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. Is he going to be okay? Nathan didn't have an answer. A doctor appeared from behind a set of double doors, scanning the waiting room. Family of Liam Hale? Nathan was moving before the words fully registered. That's me. I'm his father. The doctor was young, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes and a stethoscope draped around his neck. Mr. Hale, I'm Dr. Patterson. Your son's stable now. We got him on a nebulizer treatment, and his oxygen levels are back up. The relief was so intense, Nathan's knees almost gave out. Can I see him? Sure. In a minute, I want to talk to you first. Dr. Patterson gestured toward a quieter corner of the waiting room. Liam told us he's had asthma for a few years. Is he on a daily controller medication? Nathan's stomach dropped. No, just the rescue inhaler. How often does he use it? I don't know, maybe once or twice a week? Dr. Patterson's expression didn't change, but Nathan could feel the judgment anyway. That's too often. If he's using a rescue inhaler more than twice a week, he needs to be on a controller. Has he seen a pulmonologist? No. Why not? Because specialists cost money Nathan didn't have until a month ago. Because the free clinic only did basic care. Because Nathan had been so focused on just surviving that he'd missed the fact that his son needed more. I didn't know, Nathan said, his voice hollow. I thought the inhaler was enough. It's not. Dr. Patterson's tone softened slightly. Look, I'm not here to make you feel bad, but Liam needs proper asthma management. Tonight could have been a lot worse. He needs to see a specialist, get on the right medications, and you need to identify his triggers so we can prevent this from happening again. Nathan nodded, unable to speak. I'll get you a referral before you leave. For now, we're going to keep him for observation for a few hours. Make sure he's really stable, but he should be able to go home tonight. Can I see him now? Yeah, come on. Nathan followed Dr. Patterson through the double doors into the ER. They passed curtained-off areas where he could hear voices, machines beeping, someone moaning in pain. Finally, the doctor stopped at a bed near the end. He's in here. Nathan stepped around the curtain and felt his heart crack open. Liam was sitting up in the hospital bed, an oxygen tube under his nose, looking small and scared in a hospital gown that was way too big. When he saw Nathan, his face crumpled. Dad? Nathan was beside him in 2 steps, pulling his son into his arms carefully, mindful of all the wires and tubes. Liam clung to him, his small body shaking. I'm here, buddy. I'm here. You're okay. I couldn't breathe, Liam whispered against Nathan's shoulder. I was really scared. I know. I'm sorry I wasn't there. It's not your fault. But it felt like it was. It felt like Nathan had failed at the one job that actually mattered, keeping his son safe. They stayed like that for a long time, Nathan holding Liam while his son's breathing slowly evened out. Eventually, a nurse came by to check Liam's vitals and adjust the oxygen, and Nathan reluctantly let go. You're doing great, sweetheart, the nurse said to Liam. She was older, with kind eyes and a gentle manner. How are you feeling? Better, Liam said quietly. Good. We're going to keep an eye on you for a little while longer, okay? Just to make sure everything stays good. Liam nodded. The nurse left and Nathan pulled a chair close to the bed, taking Liam's hand. I'm not going anywhere, Nathan said. Promise? Promise. They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the ER humming around them. Nathan watched his son, really watched him, and saw the exhaustion in his face. The way his breathing was still a little too deliberate, like he was working at it. How had Nathan missed this? How had he not noticed that the inhaler wasn't enough? "Dad," Liam said softly, "you're still wearing your fancy clothes. Icho?" Nathan looked down at himself. The tux jacket was gone. He'd left it in the truck, but he was still wearing the white dress shirt and black pants. One of the cufflinks was missing. His shoes were scuffed. "Yeah, I came straight from the gala." "Was it fun?" Nathan thought about the dinner table, the condescending smiles, the dance with Isabella that had felt like something important until his world tilted sideways. "Not really," he said. "Then I'm glad you left." Nathan managed a small smile. "Me too." Liam's eyes started to droop, the adrenaline and fear finally giving way to exhaustion. Nathan sat there holding his hand, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor, and tried not to think about all the ways he was failing. He didn't know how long he'd been sitting there when he heard footsteps approaching. He looked up, expecting another nurse. It was Isabella. She was still wearing the blue gown from the gala, though she'd thrown a coat over it. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged slightly, and she looked more genuinely concerned than Nathan had ever seen her. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, stopping at the edge of the curtained area. "I know I probably shouldn't be here, but I had to make sure. Is he okay?" Nathan nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, he's stable." Isabella looked at Liam, who'd fallen asleep, then back at Nathan. Can I come in?" Nathan nodded again, not trusting his voice. Isabella stepped inside and pulled up another chair, sitting down carefully. They sat in silence for a moment, both watching Liam sleep. "You didn't have to come," Nathan said finally. "I know. How did you even find us? Out." "I called the emergency rooms until I found the right one. Then I may have name-dropped my way past the front desk." Isabella's smile was faint. Perks of being a CEO was... Nathan should have felt annoyed at the display of privilege. Instead, he just felt grateful. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do." They were quiet again. Isabella reached out slowly, like she wasn't sure if it was allowed, and rested her hand on Nathan's arm. The touch was light, barely there, but it anchored him somehow. "He scared the hell out of me," Nathan said, his voice rough. "When I got that text, all I could think was..." He stopped, unable to finish. "I know," Isabella said softly. "The doctor said he needs a specialist, better medication, that I should have noticed he was using the inhaler too much." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "I didn't even know. What kind of father doesn't notice that? The kind who's doing his best with what he has. That's not good enough." "Nathan, Song, it's not." Nathan looked at her, his eyes burning. "He could have died tonight because I was too busy trying to survive to pay attention, because I didn't have the money for specialists until you handed me a better job, because I've been so focused on keeping us afloat that I missed the fact that my son can't breathe properly." Isabella's grip on his arm tightened. "You didn't know. You can't blame yourself for not knowing. Then who do I blame? Nobody. Sometimes things just happen, Nathan. Sometimes kids get sick, and parents do everything right, and it still isn't enough. That doesn't make you a bad father." Nathan wanted to believe her, but the fear was still there, coiled tight in his chest, whispering that he'd failed, that he'd always fail, that he wasn't enough and never would be. "I can't lose him," Nathan said, the words breaking. "I already lost Sophie. I can't do that again." "You won't. You don't know that." "No," Isabella admitted, "but I know you're going to do everything you can to keep him safe, and I know you're not alone in this. Not anymore." Nathan looked at her. At this woman who'd driven across the city in an evening gown to sit in an emergency room with someone else's terrified kid, who looked at Nathan like he mattered, like his fear and his failures and his desperate attempts to hold everything together were something worth caring about. "Why are you here, Isabella?" Nathan asked quietly. "Because I care about you." The words hung in the air between them, simple and devastating. "You shouldn't," Nathan said. Too late.
I'm a mess. My life is a mess. I don't have anything to offer you except I don't need you to offer me anything, Isabella interrupted. I just need you to stop pushing me away.
Nathan stared at her, and something in his chest cracked wide open. He'd spent 3 years building walls, keeping everyone at a distance because it was easier than risking the pain of losing someone again. But Isabella had somehow slipped past every defense he'd built, and now she was sitting here in the wreckage of his fear, telling him he didn't have to do this alone. I don't know how to do this,
Nathan said. Do what? Let someone in. Trust someone. I'm not good at it. Neither am I, Isabella said. But maybe we can figure it out together.
Nathan looked at his son, sleeping peacefully despite the oxygen tube in the hospital bed and all the fear. Then he looked back at Isabella. Okay, he said quietly. Isabella's expression softened into something that looked almost like relief. She squeezed his arm once more, then let go, settling back in her chair. They sat together in silence, keeping vigil over Liam while the ER hummed around them. And for the first time in 3 years, Nathan didn't feel completely alone. They released Liam at 2 a.m. Nathan carried his son to the truck. Liam was awake, but exhausted, moving slowly, and buckled him into the back seat. Isabella had stayed the entire time, and now she stood beside Nathan's truck in the hospital parking lot, her coat wrapped tight against the early morning chill. You should get some rest, Isabella said. Yeah, you too. She hesitated. Nathan, I meant what I said in there. You're not alone. Wump. Stombalem. Nathan nodded, too tired to put his feelings into words. I'll call you tomorrow, Isabella said. Check in. Make sure you're both okay. Okay? She started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. Before Nathan could process what was happening, she stepped close and wrapped her arms around him. The hug was brief but tight, and Nathan found himself holding on like she was the only thing keeping him upright. Drive safe, Isabella said when she pulled away. You too. Nathan watched her walk to her car, then climbed into his truck and drove Liam home through the empty streets. When they got to the apartment, Nathan helped Liam inside and straight to bed. His son was asleep within minutes, his breathing steady and even with the new medication the hospital had sent home with them. Nathan sat on the edge of Liam's bed for a long time, just watching him breathe, in and out, alive. Eventually, Nathan stood and went to his own room. He peeled off the ruined tux pants and the wrinkled dress shirt, changing into sweatpants and a t-shirt. Then he lay down on top of the covers and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. Made it home. Sleep well. Call me if you need anything. Nathan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Thank you for everything. The response came quickly. Always. Nathan set the phone on the nightstand and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd call the specialist. Make an appointment. Figure out medication schedules and triggers and all the things he should have known months ago. Tomorrow, he'd deal with the fallout from running out of the gala. Apologize to his coworkers. Face whatever gossip was waiting for him at work. Tomorrow, he'd figure out what Isabella's presence in his life actually meant and whether he was brave enough to let it mean something. But tonight, Liam was breathing. They were both home. And that was enough. The gossip started Monday morning. Nathan heard it the moment he walked into the building, voices cutting off mid-sentence when he passed, eyes following him down hallways, whispers that weren't quite quiet enough. He'd expected it, had braced himself for it, but that didn't make it easier when he overheard 2 guys from production talking in the break room. I'm telling you, man, it's not what you think. Royce showed up at the hospital. They were there together for hours. So what? Maybe she's just being nice. Nobody's that nice. Come on, you think she promotes some random factory worker, shows up to hold his hand in the ER, and there's nothing going on? Binge. Balking. Maybe. I don't know. Seems messy. Nathan poured his coffee and walked out without acknowledging them. Let them talk. He had bigger things to worry about. Carter called him into her office before lunch. Close the door, she said. Nathan did, his stomach sinking. Carter leaned back in her chair, studying him. You want to tell me what happened Saturday night? My son had an asthma attack. I had to leave. I heard. I also heard you made quite a scene running out of the gala. I didn't have time to worry about making a scene.
No, I suppose you didn't.
Carter's expression was unreadable.
Look, Hale, I'm not going to pretend I know what's going on between you and Isabella Royce. That's your business.
But people are talking, and talking becomes rumors, and rumors become problems. There's nothing going on.
You sure about that?
Nathan met her gaze. Even if there was, it wouldn't affect my work. Carter was quiet for a moment. You're right. It wouldn't. You're good at your job, Hale. Really good. But be careful. This company runs on politics as much as production, and you're walking into territory you might not understand. Meaning? Yeah, meaning Isabella Royce is powerful, connected, and very visible. Anyone close to her becomes visible too, and visibility brings scrutiny. Carter leaned forward. I like you, Hale. Carter, I don't want to see you get chewed up by something you didn't sign up for. Nathan nodded slowly. Thanks for the warning. Just be smart. He left Carter's office feeling unsettled. He'd been so focused on surviving, on taking care of Liam, that he hadn't thought about what being connected to Isabella might actually mean. But Carter was right. People were watching now, judging, making assumptions. And Nathan had no idea how to navigate any of it. He was still turning it over in his mind when his phone rang. Isabella. Nathan stepped into an empty conference room before answering. Hey. Hi. How's Liam? Good. Better. I got an appointment with a pediatric pulmonologist for next week. That's great. I'm glad. Isabella paused. How are you? Fine. Nathan. He sighed. People are talking about us, about Saturday night. I know. Does that bother you? Does it bother you? Isabella countered. Nathan thought about it. Yeah, a little. I don't like people thinking I'm using you or that you're, I don't know, slumming it with the factory worker or whatever story they're telling themselves. But they're going to think what they want regardless of the truth, Isabella said. We can't control that. I know, but it still sucks. It does, Isabella agreed. For what it's worth, I don't care what they think. You should. You're the CEO. Your reputation matters. So does yours. Isabella's voice was firm. And so does what actually happened Saturday night. You left because your son needed you. I went because you were scared, and I wanted to be there. That's the truth. Everything else is noise. Nathan leaned against the conference table. You make it sound simple. It is simple. People just like to make things complicated. Yeah, maybe. They were quiet for a moment. Nathan, Isabella said carefully, what are we doing here? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Nathan rubbed his face. I like you, Isabella, a lot. More than I probably should. But I've got Liam to think about, and a job I can't afford to lose, and a life that's already complicated enough without adding, whatever this is. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to do this, any of this. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. What if we just took it slow? No pressure, no expectations, just see where things go. Nathan wanted to say yes, wanted to believe it could be that simple, but nothing in his life had ever been simple. Okay, he said anyway. Yeah? Yeah, slow, we can try that. He could hear the smile in Isabella's voice. Good. What is that boy? They talked for a few more minutes, about nothing important, just the kind of conversation that felt normal and easy, before Isabella had to go. When Nathan hung up, he felt lighter somehow. Maybe this could work. Maybe he could let himself have something good without it falling apart. Maybe. The weeks that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Nathan focused on work and Liam. The specialist prescribed new medications that actually worked, and Liam's breathing improved dramatically. Nathan started keeping a journal of potential triggers, dust, cold air, certain foods, and slowly learned how to manage his son's asthma properly. Isabella called or texted most days, sometimes to check on Liam, sometimes just to talk. They met for coffee twice, dinner once, nothing formal, just two people getting to know each other. The gossip at work faded eventually, replaced by newer scandals and office politics. Nathan kept his head down, did his job, and tried not to overthink everything. But the truth was, he was falling for Isabella Royce. It happened slowly, in small moments. The way she remembered details about Liam's life, the way she listened when Nathan talked about work frustrations, the way she looked at him sometimes, like he was something worth keeping. Nathan hadn't felt this way since Sophie, hadn't let himself feel this way. And it terrified him, because caring about someone meant risking loss, meant opening himself up to the kind of pain he'd barely survived the first time. But Isabella made it hard to stay scared. One Friday evening, Nathan picked Liam up from school and found Isabella waiting in the parking lot. She was leaning against her car, sunglasses on, looking completely out of place among the minivans and station wagons. Liam saw her first. "Dad, Isabella's here!" He took off running before Nathan could stop him, throwing his arms around Isabella in a hug that made her laugh. "Hey kiddo, good day at school? Is your ex truths?" "Yeah, we started learning about the solar system and I got to do a presentation on Jupiter." "That's awesome." Isabella glanced at Nathan as he approached. "I hope it's okay that I stopped by. I was in the area and thought, I don't know, maybe we could all grab dinner?" Nathan felt something warm settle in his chest. "Yeah, okay. That sounds good. They went to a burger place Liam loved, crowded and loud, and nothing like the places Isabella probably usually ate. But she didn't seem to mind. She sat across from Nathan and Liam in a sticky booth, eating fries and listening to Liam talk about planets and rockets, and whether humans would ever live on Mars. Nathan watched them interact, Isabella asking genuine questions, Liam lighting up under her attention, and felt something shift. This could be real. This could be a life. After dinner, they walked to a nearby park. Liam ran ahead to the playground, leaving Nathan and Isabella alone on a bench. "He's a great kid," Isabella said. "Yeah, he is. He talks about you all the time, you know, how hard you work, how much you care." Isabella looked at Nathan. "He's lucky to have you." Nathan's throat tightened. "I don't always feel that way." "I know, but it's true anyway." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Liam climb on the jungle gym. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Nathan," Isabella said quietly, "I need to tell you something." He turned to her, his chest tightening. "What?" "I'm falling for you. I know we said slow and I know this is complicated, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Isabella's voice was steady, but vulnerable. "I care about you, about Liam, about this, whatever this is between us. And I need you to know that." Nathan stared at her, his heart pounding. He could say it back, could tell her he felt the same way, could let himself fall completely and hope it didn't destroy him, or he could pull back, protect himself, keep the walls up and stay safe. He looked at Liam, laughing on the swings. Then he looked at Isabella, waiting for an answer. And Nathan realized he was tired of being safe, tired of living half a life, because he was too scared to risk his heart. "I'm falling for you too," Nathan said, the words coming out rough but honest. "And it scares the hell out of me, but I don't want to run from it anymore." Isabella's expression shifted into something beautiful and relieved. She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "Then don't," she said simply. So Nathan didn't. He sat there holding Isabella's hand while Liam played, and for the first time in 3 years, he let himself believe that maybe he deserved this, deserved happiness, deserved love, deserved a second chance. The rumors got worse before they got better. By the time autumn rolled around, everyone at Royce Consolidated seemed to have an opinion about Nathan and Isabella's relationship. Some people thought it was romantic. Most thought it was inappropriate. A few openly questioned whether Nathan had ever actually earned his promotion, or if the whole thing had been orchestrated from the start. Nathan tried not to care, tried to focus on his work and ignore the whispers that followed him through hallways. But it wore on him, the constant judgment, the feeling that he had to prove himself twice as hard just to justify his existence in Isabella's world. It came to a head on a Thursday afternoon when Nathan overheard 2 junior managers talking in the break room. He just walked in to refill his coffee when he caught his own name. "I'm just saying it's not fair. The rest of us work our asses off and get nowhere, but Hale sleeps with the CEO." And suddenly he's management? It's bullshit. Keep your voice down, man. Why? Everyone's thinking it. He's using her. Or she's using him. Either way, it's not right. Nathan set his coffee mug down harder than he intended. Both men turned, their faces going pale when they saw him standing there. You want to say that to my face? Nathan asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The one who'd been talking, a guy named Preston, who Nathan had never particularly liked, straightened his shoulders. I'm just stating facts. Facts! You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know you came from the factory floor with no degree and no qualifications, and 6 months later you're dating the CEO. You do the math. Boys! Nathan's hands clenched into fists. The math is that I work harder than you. I'm better at my job than you. And Isabella recognized that. What we are outside of work has nothing to do with it. Sure it doesn't, Preston said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Look, I don't care what you two do in private, but don't expect the rest of us to pretend you earned this the same way we're trying to. Nathan took a step forward, and the other manager put a hand out. Preston, shut up. Just shut up. But Preston wasn't done. What's the matter, Hale? Truth hurt? Nathan was about to say something he'd regret when a voice cut through the tension. Mr. Preston? Everyone turned. Isabella stood in the doorway, her expression cold and controlled in a way that made Preston go sheet white. Miss Royce, You didn't what? Think I'd hear you openly question my business decisions? Isabella stepped into the room, her heels clicking against the tile. Or did you not think at all? Preston stammered something incoherent. Let me make something very clear, Isabella continued, her voice sharp enough to cut. Nathan Hale was promoted based on merit. His performance reviews are documented. His productivity numbers speak for themselves. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to file a formal complaint with HR. But if I hear you spreading rumors or questioning my judgment again, you'll be looking for a new job. Are we clear? Mom? Yes, ma'am. Good. Get back to work. Get? Preston and the other manager practically ran from the room. Isabella turned to Nathan, her expression softening. You okay? I had it handled. I know, but I wasn't going to stand there and let him. She stopped, taking a breath. This is my fault. I should have anticipated this. It's not your fault that people are assholes. No, but it's my responsibility to protect my employees, including you. Isabella looked frustrated, angry in a way Nathan rarely saw. Maybe we should cool things down. Publicly, I mean. If being with me is making your life harder, don't, Nathan said firmly. Don't do that. I'm not walking away because some guy with an ego problem can't handle the idea that I might actually deserve this job. Nathan. I mean it, Isabella. I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending this isn't real just to make other people comfortable. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I love you, and I don't care who knows it. Isabella's breath caught. What did you say? Nathan realized what he'd just admitted, but he didn't take it back. I love you. I have for a while now. I didn't know how to say it. Isabella's eyes shone with something that looked like tears, though she blinked them back quickly. I love you too. They stood there in the break room, surrounded by bad coffee and fluorescent lights, and Nathan felt something settle in his chest. This was real. This mattered. And he wasn't going to let anyone take it away. We should probably get back to work, Isabella said, though she didn't move. Probably. Neither of them moved. Finally, Isabella smiled. Dinner tonight? Your place? Okay. Yeah, I'll make spaghetti. I'll bring wine. She left and Nathan stood alone in the break room, his heart still racing. He'd said it. He loved her. And somehow, impossibly, she loved him back. The dinner invitation turned into something more. Isabella showed up at Nathan's apartment with wine and an overnight bag, and when Liam saw her, he grinned. Are you staying over, what? He asked. Isabella glanced at Nathan, uncertain. If that's okay. Yeah, Nathan said. It's okay. They ate spaghetti at the cramped kitchen table, Liam chattering about school, while Isabella asked questions and Nathan tried not to think too hard about how domestic this felt. After dinner, they watched a movie, some animated thing about space that Liam had seen 3 times already. And Isabella sat between them on the couch, Liam eventually falling asleep against her shoulder. Nathan watched them, his throat tight with emotion. This was what family looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Warm. Right. He carried Liam to bed while Isabella cleaned up the kitchen, and when he came back, she was standing at the sink, looking out the window at the city lights. "Thank you," Nathan said. Isabella turned. "For what?" "For being here, for loving Liam the way you do, for—" He struggled to find the words. "For seeing something in us worth staying for." Isabella crossed the small kitchen and took his hands. "Nathan, you have to stop acting like I'm doing you a favor. This goes both ways. You and Liam, you've changed my life, made it better, made me better." I am, yes, man. I find that hard to believe, eh? Then believe this. Isabella's voice was fierce. "Before I met you, my life was work and more work. I went home to an empty house every night. I had money and power and success, but I didn't have anyone to share it with. I was lonely, Nathan. And I didn't even realize how much until you showed me what it felt like not to be." Nathan pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. "I was lonely too." "I know." They stood like that for a long moment, just breathing together. "Stay," Nathan said quietly. "Not just tonight. Stay. Move in. Make this real." Isabella pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Are you sure?" "No, but I want to try anyway." She smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Nathan had ever seen. "Okay, yes, let's try." They kissed, slow and sweet, and Nathan felt something click into place. This was right. Messy and complicated and probably too fast, but right. Later, lying in Nathan's too small bed with Isabella curled against his side, he stared at the ceiling and thought about how far he'd come. From standing in the rain with no way home to this, lying beside someone he loved, his son sleeping safely down the hall, a future that looked nothing like the one he'd imagined, but somehow better. "Nathan," Isabella murmured, half asleep, "what are you thinking about?" "Everything, nothing, how lucky I am." She pressed a kiss to his shoulder. "Me too. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and for the first time in years, Nathan didn't dream about loss. Ned. Isabella didn't move in right away. There were logistics to figure out, boundaries to establish with Liam, conversations about what this would look like long term. But over the following months, her presence became a constant. Clothes appearing in Nathan's closet, toothbrush in the bathroom, her laptop on the kitchen table where she'd work in the evenings, while Nathan helped Liam with homework. It wasn't seamless. They argued about stupid things, dishes, schedules, Nathan's stubborn pride that made him refuse help even when he needed it. Isabella was used to controlling everything, and Nathan was used to doing everything alone. Learning to meet in the middle took practice, but they learned. Isabella started leaving work earlier to have dinner with them. Nathan started accepting that letting her pay for things sometimes didn't make him weak. Liam flourished under the attention, his grades improving, his asthma under control, his world expanding in ways Nathan couldn't have given him alone. One Saturday morning in early spring, Nathan woke to find Isabella already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop and a cup of coffee. Liam was still asleep. "Morning," Nathan said, pouring himself coffee. "Morning?" Isabella glanced up, then closed her laptop. "I want to talk to you about something." Nathan's stomach tightened. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. I promise." Isabella took a breath. "I've been thinking about what you said a few months ago, about building things, woodworking." "Okay. There's a property outside the city, about 40 minutes from here. It's part of my family's estate, a farmhouse that's been sitting empty for years. Beautiful land, lots of space." Isabella paused. "I want to renovate it, turn it into a real home, and I want you and Liam to live there, with me." Nathan set his coffee down slowly. "Isabella, before you say no, just listen. I know what you're thinking. that it's too much, that you can't accept it, that it feels like charity. But it's not. It's me wanting to build a life with you, a real life, with room for Liam to run around and for you to have a workshop where you can build things again, and for all of us to have space to breathe. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to. The house is mine. It's been in my family for decades. I'm just asking you to live in it, to make it a home. Isabella's voice softened. I love this apartment, Nathan. I love what it represents, you surviving, building a life for Liam against impossible odds. But you don't have to just survive anymore. You can live. We all can. Nathan stared at her, his mind racing. The offer was enormous, overwhelming, everything his pride wanted to reject. But it was also a future, a real future, with space and possibility and room for all of them. Can I see it first? Nathan asked finally. Isabella's face lit up. Yeah, of course. We can go this afternoon. The farmhouse was beautiful. It sat on 10 acres of rolling land, surrounded by old trees and open fields that stretched toward distant hills. The house itself was 2 stories of weathered white siding with a wraparound porch and windows that faced the sunrise. It needed work. The paint was peeling, some of the floorboards creaked. The kitchen was decades out of date. But Nathan could see the potential. More than that, he could see the life they could build here. Liam ran through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing, shouting about which one would be his bedroom. Isabella walked beside Nathan, pointing out what could be updated, what could stay. Ideas for turning this barn into a workshop. What do you think, Ma? She asked. Nathan stood on the porch, looking out at the land, and felt something shift in his chest. I think it's perfect. Yeah? Bars? Well, yeah, he turned to her. But I need you to understand something. I'm not moving in here as your, your dependent. If we're doing this, we're doing it as partners. I pay my share. I contribute. I'm not just along for the ride. Isabella smiled. I wouldn't want it any other way. Good. So is that a yes? Nathan pulled her close, kissing her softly. It's a yes. Liam came running out onto the porch, breathless and grinning. Dad, there's a tree out back that's perfect for a treehouse. Can we build one? Nathan looked at his son, then at Isabella, then back at the house that would become their home. Yeah, buddy, he said, his voice rough with emotion. We can build one. The renovations took 6 months. Nathan threw himself into the work, spending weekends sanding floors and painting walls and learning how to fix things he'd never fixed before. Isabella hired contractors for the big stuff, but Nathan insisted on doing as much as he could himself, partly because he liked working with his hands, partly because he needed to feel like he'd earned this somehow. Isabella set up a workshop in the barn, filling it with tools, some new, some that had belonged to her father. Nathan spent evenings out there, slowly remembering how to build things, simple at first. A bookshelf, a coffee table, then more complex projects, a dresser for Liam's room, a bench for the porch. It felt like coming back to life. They moved in on a Saturday in October, the trees blazing with color, the air crisp and clean. Liam picked his room, the one with windows facing the backyard, and immediately started unpacking his space posters and model rockets. Isabella claimed the smaller bedroom as an office, insisting Nathan take the larger one since he'd need closet space. That night they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by boxes and furniture that hadn't been arranged yet. This is really happening, Nathan said, looking around. Scared? Isabella asked. Terrified. Me too. Liam looked between them. Why are you scared? This is awesome. Nathan laughed. You're right. It is awesome. They finished eating and started unpacking, working together to turn the empty house into something that felt like home. Liam fell asleep on the couch around 9, exhausted from the move. Nathan carried him upstairs and tucked him into his new bed, watching his son's face relax into sleep. When he came back downstairs, Isabella was standing in the kitchen, looking out the window at the dark fields beyond. You okay? Nathan asked. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, Isabella admitted, for this to fall apart. It feels too good to be real. Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind. It's real, and it's not going to fall apart. How do you know? Because we won't let it.
Isabella turned in his arms, her expression vulnerable in a way that still caught Nathan off guard. I love you.
So much it scares me sometimes.
I know the feeling.
Nathan kissed her forehead. I love you too. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in their new kitchen, and Nathan thought about all the nights he'd stood alone in his old apartment, wondering if things would ever get better. They had. Against all odds, they had. 2. The first real fight happened 3 weeks after they moved in. It started small. Nathan coming home late from work without calling, Isabella getting frustrated that he hadn't checked his phone. But it escalated quickly, both of them saying things they didn't mean, old wounds surfacing in ways neither expected. You can't just shut down every time something bothers you, Isabella said, her voice tight with frustration. I can't read your mind, Nathan. And you can't fix everything by throwing money at it, Nathan shot back. Sometimes things are just hard, Isabella. Sometimes there's no solution except dealing with it. I'm not trying to fix you. Aren't you? This house, the job, everything? Sometimes it feels like you're trying to remake my life into something you can control. Isabella's face went pale. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's how I feel. Good. They stood in the kitchen, the silence between them heavy and painful. Liam was upstairs doing homework, oblivious to the tension. Finally, Isabella spoke, her voice quiet. I never wanted to control you. I just wanted to help. I know, and I'm grateful. I am. But sometimes I don't know where I end and your help begins. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Then what do you want me to do? I don't know. Nathan ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. I don't know. I need you to understand that I'm still figuring this out. Being with you, living here, all of it. I'm not used to having someone who cares this much, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Isabella wiped at her eyes. I'm overwhelming. No. Yes. Maybe. Nathan sighed. I love you, Isabella, but I also need space to be myself, to make mistakes. To not feel like I'm constantly trying to measure up to some version of me you have in your head. I don't have a version of you in my head, I just have you, and you're enough. Then let me be enough. Stop trying to solve every problem before I even know it exists. Isabella nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. They talked for another hour, working through the hurt and the misunderstanding, learning how to fight without destroying each other. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. But by the time they went to bed, they understood each other a little better. And Nathan learned that love wasn't about avoiding conflict. It was about showing up anyway, even when things were hard. Winter came early that year. Snow fell in thick blankets, transforming the farmhouse and surrounding fields into something out of a postcard. Liam built snowmen and went sledding down the hill behind the house. Isabella worked from home more often, her laptop set up in the office while Nathan worked in the barn, building a dining table for the kitchen. One evening in late December, Nathan came inside to find Isabella and Liam baking cookies. Flour dusted the counters, and the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and sugar. What's all this? Nathan asked. We're making cookies for the neighbors, Liam announced. Isabella said it's what people do. Nathan raised an eyebrow at Isabella, who shrugged. I thought it might be nice to introduce ourselves properly. They spent the evening baking and packaging cookies, then walked through the snow to deliver them to the 3 closest houses. The neighbors were kind, welcoming, genuinely happy to have new people in the old farmhouse that had sat empty for so long. Walking back home through the snow, Liam between them holding both their hands, Nathan felt a surge of contentment so strong it almost hurt. This was his life now, this house, this woman, this child, a family he'd built from broken pieces and second chances. Dad, Liam said, tugging on his hand, can we get a dog? Nathan looked at Isabella, who was trying not to smile. We'll see, buddy. That's adult for yes, Liam said confidently. Isabella laughed, and the sound carried across the snow-covered fields. Later, after Liam was asleep, Nathan and Isabella sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching snow fall in the darkness. I want to marry you, Nathan said suddenly. Isabella turned to him, eyes wide. What? I want to marry you. I don't have a ring or a plan or anything romantic prepared,
but I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you, you and Liam, and whatever comes next.
Nathan took her hands. Will you marry me? Isabella was crying now, smiling through tears. Yes, yes, of course I'll marry you. They kissed, the snow falling around them, and Nathan felt like everything he'd lost and survived and fought for had led him to this exact moment. Chag, they were married in the spring. Not a big ceremony, neither of them wanted that. Just close friends and family in the backyard of the farmhouse, flowers blooming everywhere. Liam standing beside Nathan in a suit that matched his father's. Isabella wore a simple white dress and looked more beautiful than Nathan had ever seen her. When she walked toward him through the garden they'd planted together, Nathan's throat closed up with emotion. The vows were short, honest, promises to show up, to keep trying, to love each other through the hard parts and the good parts and everything in between. When they kissed, Liam cheered, and everyone laughed. The reception was casual, barbecue and music and people dancing on the lawn. Nathan watched Isabella laugh with her friends, watched Liam run around with the other kids, and felt grateful in a way that went bone deep. Later, as the sun set and guests started leaving, David Chen, who Nathan had stayed friends with, pulled him aside. You did good, man, David said, raising his beer. I'm happy for you. Thanks.
I still can't believe this is my life. Believe it, you earned it. Nathan thought about that, about earning things, about deserving things, about all the years he'd believed he didn't deserve happiness because he'd already lost so much. Maybe I did, Nathan said quietly. That night, after everyone had gone home and Liam was asleep upstairs, Nathan and Isabella sat on the porch in the darkness. What are you thinking? Isabella asked. That 3 years ago, I was standing in the rain with no way home and no idea how I was going to survive. And now I'm here, with you, with everything I never thought I'd have again. Isabella took his hand. Life's funny that way. The worst nights sometimes lead to the best mornings. Yeah, they do, and they sat in comfortable silence, and Nathan thought about Sophie, about how she would have liked Isabella, how she would have been happy that Nathan had found someone who loved Liam the way she would have. He'd spent so long feeling guilty for moving on, but sitting here now, he realized that loving Isabella didn't erase what he'd had with Sophie. It just meant his heart was big enough to hold both. Thank you, Nathan said softly. For what? For stopping. That night in the rain, for giving me a ride when you didn't have to, for seeing something in me worth caring about. Isabella squeezed his hand. Thank you for getting in the car, for trusting me, for letting me into your life. Nathan pulled her close, and they sat together under the stars. Two people who'd been lonely, finding home in each other. A year later, on a snowy Christmas night, Nathan stood in the doorway of Liam's bedroom, watching his son sleep. Liam was 10 now, growing fast, his face losing the softness of childhood. But he was healthy, happy, thriving in ways Nathan had once been afraid to hope for. Downstairs, Isabella was putting the finishing touches on Christmas dinner, music playing softly from the kitchen. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon and all the warmth of home. Nathan thought about the journey that had brought them here, the factory shifts and missed buses, the cold apartment and empty refrigerator, the fear that he wasn't enough, would never be enough. He'd been wrong, not because he'd suddenly become perfect, or because life had stopped being hard, but because he'd learned that being enough wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about showing up, trying, letting people in even when it scared him, building something real from whatever pieces he had. The storm that had nearly destroyed him, that terrible night when he'd stood soaked and freezing with nowhere to go, had become the night that changed everything. The night a stranger stopped to offer help. The night Nathan learned that accepting help wasn't weakness, that love could exist in unexpected places, that second chances were real if you were brave enough to take them. He'd spent years building walls to keep the pain out, but those same walls had kept everything else out too: joy, connection, the possibility that life could be more than just survival. Isabella had taught him that. So had Liam, in his own way. They'd shown Nathan that strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about standing together. Dad? Nathan turned. Liam was awake, blinking sleep from his eyes. Hey, buddy. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you. It's okay. Liam sat up. Were you just watching me sleep? That's kind of weird. Nathan laughed. Yeah, I guess it is. How come you do it?
Nathan sat on the edge of the bed. Because sometimes I still can't believe how lucky I am. That you're here. That we're here. That everything turned out okay. Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm glad Isabella stopped that night. In the rain. Me too. Do you think you would have been okay if she hadn't? What? Nathan considered the question. I don't know, maybe. We're survivors, you and me. We would have figured something out. But this is better, right? Having her here? Yeah, buddy. This is definitely better. Liam smiled and lay back down. I love you, Dad. Man, I love you too, Aunt. Nathan pulled the blanket up and smoothed Liam's hair back, the gesture automatic after years of tucking him in. Then he went downstairs to his wife, to the home they'd built together, to the life that had seemed impossible not so long ago. Isabella looked up when he entered the kitchen, her face softening into a smile. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, Nathan said. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he meant it. Because sometimes the worst moments break you open just wide enough for light to get in. Sometimes losing everything teaches you what actually matters. Sometimes the people who save you are the ones you never saw coming. Nathan had learned that survival wasn't the same as living, that accepting love didn't make you weak, that family was something you built, not something you were born with, that second chances existed if you were willing to risk your heart one more time. He'd spent 3 years believing he was alone. But he'd never been alone. Not really. There had always been Liam, reminding him what he was fighting for. And then there had been Isabella, showing him that fighting didn't mean doing it alone. Life wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, still struggled with money sometimes, with balance, with the normal chaos of building a life together. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. Nathan wrapped his arms around Isabella in their warm kitchen, breathing in the smell of pine and cinnamon and home, and felt grateful for every storm that had brought him here, for every moment of fear and doubt that had taught him what courage really meant, for every night he'd stood in the cold wondering if things would ever get better. They had. Not because someone swooped in to save him, but because he'd been brave enough to save himself, to accept help when it was offered, to believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved happiness. And standing there in the glow of Christmas lights, with his wife in his arms, and his son sleeping safely upstairs, Nathan Hale finally understood what it meant to be home, not a place, not a house, but the people you choose and who choose you back. The family you build from broken pieces and hope. The love that survives the storms and comes out stronger on the other side. That was home, and Nathan was finally, truly there.